Okay, I'm speaking to you from on holiday here at Centre Parks in Longleat in Wiltshire. Hence the ridiculous introduction to this video, which was the idea of my best man Phil. We're here on holiday with him and his wife Kate and their family. Behind me is the Jardin des Sports and the lake just in front of it. The Jardin des Sports is essentially a sports centre, but made all the more exotic and exciting, of course, for being given a French name. Now we need to cap off inheritance tax as it relates to trusts. We talked last time about the relevant property regime, which is now the kind of default when it comes to dealing with inheritance tax for trusts. So you had to remember the entry charge potentially, so tax payable when the trust is set up, every 10 years during the life of the trust, that's called the periodic charge, and potentially also an exit charge when the trust is wound up and the money paid out to the beneficiaries. So we need to just look at the other types of trusts very quickly. And we'll start with accumulation and maintenance trusts. Now these trusts, you remember, are set up primarily for the, as the name suggests, maintenance and education of minor children. And the idea is that they inherit in their own right by age 18 to 25. Now for these kind of trusts set up after the 22nd of March 2006, they fall into the relevant property regime, right? Everything that we talked about last time applies. For those set up before March 2006, it's slightly different. First of all, the gift into the trust when the trust was set up is a potentially exempt transfer and not a chargeable lifetime transfer. Now that might sound like semantics, but as far as the tax is concerned, a potentially exempt transfer, all right, is just a gift basically. It's and you've probably heard of the 7-year rule that we talked about when we talked about inheritance tax ages ago. The 7-year rule, so the gift, the money put into the trust is a gift made by the settlor, and if he or she dies within 7 years, there may be tax payable then. That's as opposed to the relevant property regime, where there could be tax payable at outset if the gift is big enough. Forgive my eyes going all over the place, there's people walking around behind the camera all the time. Now, for A&M trusts set up before March 2006, there will have to have been some changes. Basically what happens is, if the beneficiary inherits absolutely at age 18, there's no implications at all for this relevant property regime. And many A&M trusts will have been changed so that happens, so that the trustees avoid the onerous inheritance tax regime. But if the beneficiary inherits later than age 18, what happens is it becomes a relevant property trust at age 18, and however long the trust lasts after that, then it's in that regime. But if it ends at age 18, there's no change. Okay, they're now called 18 to 25 trusts. Subtle but important difference. So in interest in possession trusts next, again, those set up after 22nd of March 2006 are in the relevant property regime. Fact, so everything that we talked about last time applies to them as far as inheritance tax is concerned. Except that if it is a will trust set up in a will where the widow or widower is the life tenant and benefits from the income in their lifetime, well then it's the old rules apply. They're not in the relevant property regime, as long as they're not added to, and that actually goes for those set up before the 22nd of March as well, 22nd of March 2006. There's lots of kids climbing trees behind the camera, which you can't see, and hence the yelling. So for those set up before 22nd of March 2006, as long as they're not changed, they stay in the regime that they were. They're not part of the relevant property regime. But if they are added to or changed terms in any way, then they fall into this new regime. So that's something for trustees to be aware of. Finally, bare trusts. Well, bare trusts are, remember, these straight-through trusts, usually for minor children or disabled adults or whatever, but they don't fall into that relevant property regime at all. That's good news. The gift into them is a potentially exempt transfer, no inheritance tax to pay unless the settlor dies within 7 years. Right, so that's it. That's inheritance tax for trusts. Now, the next episode, would you believe, is episode 99, and I just can't quite believe that we've got there that quickly. So we'll round off this series by talking about just some planning angles as it relates to trusts and how you can use them in your financial planning. And then after that, it's episode 100, and well, let's just see what that brings. So from Centre Parks and this very public location on the lake, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.